This is Dave with Taboo Customs. We are on part 2, the conclusion of our Jeep TJ, our 97 TJ here, and can we save the frame? So, in short, yes, we did save the frame. Now, at the end of this video, we'll talk about should we have saved the frame or not. That might be a different question. However, let's talk about what we did have to do. Now, if you haven't seen the first video, I would recommend going and watching the first video so you really understand kind of what we had to deal with. Because pretty much, looking at it, the frame on this Jeep, from just behind the lower control arm mount in the rear, all the way up to this front section on this side, and even farther up into the about the lower control arm mount at the front, was pretty much completely gone. Now, in our evaluation, of course, in the first video, we did show that over a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of this side of the frame from the top was still solid. And so on our kits come up to about 3/4 inches, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch from the top. So really, one thing you want to make sure you look at is how far up that rust does go. So with this fix, what we did, and first we started out by replacing the center section. Now the reason we did that is, one, we want to make sure that we got the holes for the transfer case skid plate back in the same place. And also, this kit is a little bit thicker than our other kits. This is a 7-gauge kit, and it has an extra flange that sticks out on the outside. So it's a lot easier if you're going to be installing multiple kits to install this center section kit first. And we made videos on all these different kits, so you can go to those separate videos. So we're not going to cover a whole lot of the specifics on the install of each one. So after we did the center section kit, we did our rear kits here with both the upper control arm mount replaced, and we replaced the lower control arm mount on both sides. And that's because these lower control arm mounts on the one side had completely broken off. On this side it was still connected, but as we took the Jeep apart, you know, the frame actually came apart down here. We were able to pull that back up, you know, and it retained the original position while we replaced the other side. And then we came in and we did this side, so it wasn't a huge deal. Now for the front, on this passenger side, it wasn't so bad. This frame here is actually pretty solid back up to about this area, so it's pretty well the normal frame thickness on both the sides of the top and mostly in the bottom. We were able to get, you know, a good indicator is if you can get a good weld across the bottom of any one of these kits, the frame is usually pretty good because the bottom is typically the first thing that goes. Now on the driver's side, it was a little bit different story. We did install our kit here for the area around the front lower control arms. So in addition to installing the 5 different kits on the frame, we also did install a kit here on the transfer case skid plate. With the amount of rust that was occurring in the center of the frame, the skid plate ended up getting some of that rust going into it as well. And one of these sides, the driver's side, which is this side, actually had several rust holes in it. So we ended up welding in our transfer case skid plate kit as well. So as you can see, we installed several kits from the front to the rear of this Jeep, pretty much replacing the whole center section of this frame from the bottom down of the frame. Pretty much it's all new. Now a couple things that we're going to say. Now we obviously did, you know, in our mind, this Jeep now, the frame is solid. It's solid enough to take out on the road. We feel safe with it. However, let me say this about doing work of this magnitude to this type of frame. The amount of rust that was in this frame is not a do-it-yourselfer type of fix. This is something that really we would have to recommend that if you have this type of frame, seek out someone that is definitely an experienced fabricator and welder. Obviously, any of our kits require some experience with fabrication and welding, but in this case, make sure you find that experienced fabricator and welder. When you start to overlap a lot of these kits and you have to mesh these kits together, there are some things you have to consider because it is a little bit more difficult in that area. And also with the extent of the amount of kits we had to install, that's another big thing of why. So obviously we do think that this frame now is good to go. But the real question is, should this Jeep have been fixed? Now that's a question that's a little bit bigger in scope. Obviously with the frame, it's possible to be fixed. Should have been fixed though. I think there's a lot of things that if you have a Jeep that has a frame that this was this far gone, you've got to consider. For this Jeep specifically, one, it was a 4-cylinder, 2.5 liter. Not to bash on the 4 cylinders, but in general, the 4 cylinders do have more issues. I mean, we've owned several 4 cylinders. We know, around here in the Midwest, taking them out wheeling, you tend to bounce off the rev limiter. So we tend to find that in the Midwest anyway, that the 2.5 liters don't last nearly as long as the 4 liters. So they're definitely not as sought after. In addition, the rest of the Jeep still has a lot of issues. There's still some rusted brackets and things that the owner is going to have to replace that aren't associated with the frame. There is another issue with the gas tank skid plate is as bad as it pretty much gets. As far as safety for this Jeep, I think the frame is good, but that gas tank skid plate, it's just not going to hold up, and you definitely don't want your gas tank coming out. It's actually one of the worst gas tank skid plates we've ever seen as far as rust, but that's one thing you need to watch out for with your TJs too, is that gas tank skid plate. The other big thing with this Jeep is that it has been hit in the left rear. I don't know if they were rear-ended or they backed into something, but it got hit enough that it buckled the tub on the driver's side. So when you go to open and close the door on the driver's side, it actually doesn't open or close because it drags so bad on that driver's side. The tub is just not square anymore. Along with that, the tub itself is showing some signs of rust, a little bit on the outside you can see, but definitely underneath. So with that, our recommendation, if you had a Jeep that was exactly like this, that with that amount of frame, would be not to fix it. Our recommendation would actually be to part it out. I mean, obviously, if you have a connection with the Jeep, sentimental value with the Jeep, there might be some value to you in fixing it, but this customer here with this Jeep still has a long way to go before he's really ready to go drive this Jeep around. So that does it for our video covering the conclusion of our Can We Fix It Jeep TJ frame. As always, thank you for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, you can get a hold of us on our website, taboocustoms.com, and if this video has helped at all, a like or subscribe is always appreciated. Thank you.